Imagine it is the year 1831. The sun is burning hot over the fields of Virginia. You are a farmer, and your entire life depends on the next 10 days. If you don't cut the wheat now, it will rot, and your family will starve in the winter. You are using a scythe, a long, curved blade. You swing it all day until your back feels like it's breaking and your hands are bleeding. This is how humans have harvested food for 10,000 years. From the pharaohs of Egypt to the kings of Europe, nothing had changed. If you wanted more food, you needed more slaves or more sons. But standing at the edge of the field is a young man named Cyrus McCormick. He isn't swinging a blade. He is watching his father, Robert, fail. For 28 years, Robert McCormick had tried to build a mechanical reaper, a machine that could cut wheat like a giant pair of scissors. But every time Robert took his machine to the field, it failed. The neighbors laughed. They called it the McCormick Nightmare. They thought the idea of a machine doing a human's job was against the laws of God. Cyrus watched his father give up. He saw the tears in his father's eyes. But Cyrus didn't see a nightmare. He saw a golden opportunity. He realized that the person who could solve this problem wouldn't just be an inventor, they would be the master of life. Because whoever controls the harvest controls the food, and whoever controls the food controls the world. Cyrus took his father's broken designs into a small log workshop. He stayed there for weeks, surrounded by fire, iron, and wood. He wasn't just building a tool. He was building a god of steel that would replace human hands forever. In July 1831, Cyrus rolled out his invention. It looked like a strange wooden chariot with spinning blades. He pulled it into a neighbor's field. The townspeople gathered, ready to laugh again. But as the horse pulled the machine, something miraculous happened. The blades hummed, the grain fell in perfect rows, and in one afternoon, Cyrus did the work of 10 men. The laughter stopped. A deep silence fell over the crowd. They realized they were looking at the end of the old world. Cyrus McCormick had just invented the future, and he was only 22 years old. You might think that after inventing such a miracle machine, Cyrus became a billionaire overnight. But the truth is much darker. For the next 10 years, Cyrus McCormick didn't sell a single machine. Why? Because farmers are traditional people. They didn't trust a clacking monster made of iron. Also, the machine was expensive. It cost $100, which back then was more than a farmer made in a whole year. Cyrus was a man with a genius invention, but zero customers. Then came the great crash of 1837. The banks failed, the economy collapsed, and the McCormick family lost almost everything. Cyrus was forced to sell his farm, his furniture, and even his personal belongings. He was down to his last few dollars. But while everyone else was crying, Cyrus was planning. He realized that Virginia was the wrong place. The soil was too rocky and the hills were too steep for his machine. He looked at a map and saw the Great West, the flat, endless prairies of Illinois and Ohio. He realized that his machine wasn't meant for small farms. It was meant for an empire. But there was a new problem, a rival. A man named Obed Hussey had invented his own reaper and got a patent first. This started a reaper war that lasted for decades. Obed and Cyrus would travel to the same towns and have reaper duels in front of crowds. They would race their machines to see which one could cut faster. It was like a 19th century version of a drag race. Cyrus realized that having the best machine wasn't enough. He had to be a marketing genius. Cyrus began writing his own newspaper ads. He used testimonials. He got famous farmers to sign letters saying his machine was the best. This was one of the first times in history that influencer marketing was ever used. He didn't just sell a machine, he sold a guarantee. He told farmers, "If it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back." This was a revolutionary business strategy. He was building trust in a world full of scammers. He was slowly surrounding his rival, Obed Hussey, and cutting off his oxygen. Cyrus wasn't just an inventor anymore. He was becoming a predator. In 1847, Cyrus did something crazy. He moved to a small, swampy town called Chicago. Back then, Chicago was nothing but mud and mosquitoes. People told him he was insane. But Cyrus saw that Chicago was the gateway to the West. Every train and every boat had to pass through there. He built a massive factory on the banks of the Chicago River. This wasn't just a factory, it was a city of progress. But there was still one wall standing between him and billions of dollars. The farmers were still poor. They wanted the machine, but they couldn't pay $100 at once. So, Cyrus McCormick invented something that we all use today, but often hate: the installment plan. He told the farmers, "Take the machine now, harvest your wheat, sell the wheat, and pay me back in 3 years." This was the wealth secret that changed everything. By inventing credit, Cyrus made it possible for even the poorest farmer to buy his technology. He turned his customers into his partners. He also invented the money-back guarantee and after-sales service. If a part broke, he had agents in every town with spare parts ready to fix it. Before McCormick, if your tool broke, you were finished. Now, you had a global corporation protecting you. His factory in Chicago began pumping out thousands of reapers. The sound of the steam hammers and the glow of the furnaces could be seen for miles. Cyrus was becoming the Reaper King. He was making so much money that he began to influence the government. He realized that his machines were doing more than just cutting wheat. They were moving the center of power in America. The West was becoming the breadbasket of the world, and Chicago was the capital of that empire. Cyrus was the man holding the keys. When the American Civil War broke out in 1861, everyone thought the South would win because they had King Cotton. But the North had something more powerful: the McCormick Reaper. This is a part of history that most textbooks leave out. When the young men of the North went to fight in the army, there was nobody left to work the farms. Usually, this would mean the country would starve. But Cyrus's machines were now on every farm in the North. One man with a McCormick Reaper could do the work of 20 men. Because of this, the North could send millions of soldiers to the front lines and still produce more food than ever before. The North was actually exporting wheat to Europe during the war. Meanwhile, in the South, they didn't have many machines. Their slaves were running away and their fields were rotting. The South was literally starving to death. Abraham Lincoln's Secretary of War once said, "The reaper is to the North what the slave is to the South." It releases our young men to go to the army, and yet our harvests are more abundant than ever. Cyrus McCormick, a man who actually supported the South politically, had accidentally handed the North the weapon that won the war. His machine of steel had defeated the system of slavery. After the war, the world looked at America and was shocked. They saw a country that had just fought a bloody war, but was somehow richer and better fed than before it started. Every king and emperor in Europe wanted a McCormick Reaper. Cyrus became a global celebrity. He traveled to London, Paris, and Vienna. He won the Grand Medal of Honor at the World's Fair. He was no longer just a businessman from Chicago. He was a global titan. He was the man who had officially ended the era of human muscle and started the era of machine power. In 1871, tragedy struck. The Great Chicago Fire burned Cyrus's massive factory to the ground. In one night, his empire was turned into a pile of ash. Cyrus was 62 years old. Most people would have retired and lived on their millions, but Cyrus McCormick wasn't a normal man. While the ruins were still smoking, he stood on the site of his factory and told his wife, "I will build it again, and it will be bigger than before." He spent millions to rebuild the most advanced factory in the world. He was obsessed with total dominance. He didn't just want to be the best, he wanted to be the only one. This led to what business historians call the Harvester Wars. Eventually, his company merged with others to become International Harvester, one of the biggest corporations in the world. Cyrus McCormick died in 1884. His last words were, "Work, work, work." He had lived to see his machine conquer every continent. He started with a broken dream in a log cabin and ended with a global empire that fed billions. But his legacy is complex. He replaced human labor, which made food cheap, but it also forced millions of farmers off their land and into crowded cities to work in factories. He created modern wealth, but he also created modern stress. The lesson of the Reaper King is simple. To build an empire, you don't just need a great product. You need a system. You need credit. You need marketing. And you need a ruthless will to survive. Cyrus McCormick didn't just harvest wheat, he harvested time. He gave humanity back millions of hours that used to be spent in the fields. Today, when you walk into a grocery store and see shelves full of bread, you are looking at the shadow of Cyrus McCormick. He was the man who turned steel into bread, and bread into the world's most powerful empire.